Welcome to Love the Scale to Perfection, and today we are doing something different. We have a guest in the studio. Today we're going to talk about youth in leadership, a topic that is affecting us very critically as a country right now and even as a society. And we have an entrepreneur, an educator, and someone who is really passionate on principles and mentorship. So, Sir Cliff, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tad.
We are very glad to have you also. And so let's go straight to the questions and to this discussion. What do you define leadership as, Cliff?
I define leadership very simply. I define leadership in terms of service. And I think that's the best way to define leadership. I define leadership as serving your generation with your gift. So I bring the aspect of service, and I also bring the aspect of your gifting.
Okay.
And then there is also the generation or the context within which you exist. So for me, leadership is simply serving your generation with your gift.
Okay.
Yes.
And now that you've talked about gifts, we know people are born with gifts. Does it mean also people are born as leaders? Because that's a question that has been asked very often. Are people born as leaders, or they are raised up as leaders after they continue in their life?
That question has been there for a very long time. Are leaders born or made? Is leadership reserved for a minority few? Is leadership for everyone? I've had people say, I don't think I'm a leader. I don't think I'm a leader. I can't take that challenge. I believe everyone is born a leader. But I also think there's a difference between a leader and leadership.
Okay.
A leader is the individual or the office, but leadership is the process of functioning. So I think everyone is born a leader, but not everyone gets the opportunity to develop leadership.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, coming to the relevance of the topic at hand today, do you think the youth in our country are they ready for leadership?
Based on my definition of leadership, I think it's the question of not are they ready, but are they equipped?
Okay.
Because readiness has to do with equipping. I think we have youths who have really developed their leadership, and they're ready to take up leadership, and they should take up leadership, because we've seen where the old model of leadership has taken us as a country, as a nation. And by the way, leadership is a global problem.
Okay.
So looking at the current challenges that we're facing as a nation, as a community, as Africa, there is need for leadership, and young people should. It's really high time that young people should take the challenge of leadership and rise to manifest their leadership.
Okay.
Yes.
And we know there is a process that someone has to go through to develop that leadership.
Yes.
Is it relative, or are there strict set guidelines that one should follow in order to get to that peak of being an effective leader?
A lot has been written on the subject of leadership. I may not point 10 points or 20 points or 10 keys to developing the leader in you, but there is obviously a process, because actually leadership in itself is a process. Every single year you are growing. So I believe there is a process to developing the leader in you. So that process for me begins at a very individual stage of self-discovery. If you discover the gift you're born to serve the society with, then you start working on that gift and committing yourself to serving your generation in your area of calling, then that in itself is developing the leader in you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and do you think, say, the people who went before us have an effect on the current leaders that we are having today?
Yes. Just like every living process, we grow according to the things that have been modeled by us, either by media, education, parenting, and so to a very large and significant extent, we are affected by the people who went before us.
Okay.
If they did good, we model after them, unless there is a change at an individual level where we discover what these people are presenting to us is not working for us. If we don't reach that point, then there is the danger of taking over them. So if they were effective leaders, we are likely to manifest effective leadership.
Okay.
If they were not effective leaders, we are likely to suffer from defective leadership. Yes, so I believe very strongly that people that have gone ahead of us have a very direct and powerful impact on the kind of leaders we're becoming.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's really the importance of a mentor or a father figure in our current generation, given that the youth nowadays are not that welcoming to the idea of mentors? What does it really affect us?
Yes, mentorship is key at any level. If you got in an organization as an intern, you will get a supervisor who will train you, and then you will take over a position. Growing on a corporate ladder is really a product of good mentorship. Mentorship is necessary. I think one of the reasons why young people have really rejected mentorship as we know it is because people that have gone ahead of us didn't know how to mentor us. They were exercising negative authority, that is oppression.
Okay.
They wanted to limit you to work the way they are. They didn't realize that we are different, and so our leadership style may differ. So they didn't raise us with the basic principles of leadership, but they wanted us to become like them exactly. And I believe that's the reason young people have pushed away mentorship. But mentorship is very necessary. Mentorship, in its simplest definition, is learning from someone else's mistake. So we need that. We need good mentorship. Young people need to submit to some good mentorship. And mentors out there need to commit to raising young people. So mentorship is very key to developing leaders.
Okay, we've talked about father figures, we've talked about mentors. Is it achievable then for us to become these good expected leaders that everyone wishes for us to get, but we are not yet there? Is it achievable?
I believe it's achievable. I believe it's practical. It's impossible, obviously, to achieve an ideal society where we do not have challenges, even at a leadership level. But I believe we have the potential to grow. And especially to the young people who have experienced poor leadership, who are facing consequences of poor leadership, it's possible to achieve good leadership. But we have to commit at a very individual level. Everyone, it's a process that must involve everyone. Individuals, young people must commit that they will develop their leadership, and they will commit to serving. They will not compromise. Because when we talk of leadership, we're not just talking about the gift necessarily. We're also talking about character.
Okay.
Because the gift will open door for you, but character will enable you to function in that office. So we also need young people to take up the challenge and develop values and character as they develop their gift, so that we can enjoy effective leadership. And we need to entrust effective leaders to run our affairs, because you can have a good leader, but if you do not give him the authority in the context of political offices, if we do not vote for them, they will not manifest their leadership effectively. So having effective leaders is one thing. Giving these effective leaders authority to function is another. And so that's why I believe it's a process that must involve everyone. Everyone must be involved and commit to developing leadership in our country.
Okay, and you're saying everyone should be involved. But the question is, how do we identify these leaders? Because everyone, right now, there is this trend of social media entrepreneurship, where everyone wants to have a comment about something, everyone wants to pass out an opinion they have. So how do we narrow down that this person is what we are looking for, aside from how they are speaking? How do we really know that when this person gets into a leadership position, they can be able to deliver?
I think that's a very important question. Leadership is not in speech. Leadership is in lifestyle.
Okay.
A leader is a leader, whether they are talking, their living process is the process of manifesting their leadership. And so we just need to evaluate people, their background, their contribution. Because for me, leadership is really about contribution, not about consumption. What have they done? And then what are their values? Because that's really what's going to protect them from oppressing others. It's the values, their belief systems. So we need to evaluate leaders in terms of their lifestyle, their previous record, and their values.
Okay.
Yes.
And does it mean, okay, now previous records, yes, but does it mean someone cannot change? Is there room for someone to become better?
If someone changed, then their record has changed. If you can track their record. If I can't track your record, I cannot be confident that you've changed. Because change is visible. Change is practical. If you've changed your way of life, it's visible. So I would encourage people to vote in leaders or entrust their affairs to leaders who have a record. It may not be 10 years record, but it should be a record that you can actually verify that this individual believes, because everything you do reflects your values. So if you have changed, what you've done before is going to communicate that change. I don't advocate for people to be empowered as leaders when they do not have a track record. You don't allow a leader to change in an office. It's impossible. They should have changed before assuming the office. So by the time we entrust you with an office, it's because we have evaluated you and assessed you and proven that you've changed. Yes.
So we really need people to be educated on how to identify these leaders that we want. And now we've really talked about politically, but let's come back to the common youth. There's this issue, there's peer leadership, there's peer counseling even in high schools. Is it effective? Do you think it's okay for people in the same group to lead each other?
Yes, I believe leadership is at every level. Even when seated here, I believe there is a leadership structure for this whole process, the production process. So leadership is at every level. Prefects, these are leaders. Even in primary schools, we have leaders already, young people. So the question is, what is the quality of leaders that we have? I think we should then develop the leaders at a very young age. We should teach people that leadership is about contribution, not about consumption. If that is the philosophy we can get in the lives of people, and young people especially, when they step up to manifest their leadership, they will think contribution, not consumption. So whether you're a prefect, you are going to think about how to contribute, not what you're going to get from that office. And then we must also realize that leadership is not a title. You need to function. Let the title define your office, not you as a leader. So we need to function. Leadership should be defined by functionality, not titles and rewards. Yeah, if we can teach that kind of philosophy, because the general philosophy has been, if you're a leader, you have followers. But the true biblical, which I believe is the ideal leadership philosophy, is that if you're a leader, you are a servant.
Okay.
So leadership is defined by how many people you are serving, not how many people are serving you. Because contemporary idea of leadership is how many people serve you. So if you're a preacher, for instance, you have people carrying your Bible, carrying your bottle of water. But if you're a true leader, you don't want all that. You deem that unnecessary. You want to think in terms of how am I contributing? How many people am I serving?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so servant leadership, yes. But there's this aspect that we've always been told, that a good leader is one when, even when he's not there, everything is supposed to run as normal. Can you comment about that?
Yes. Effective leadership is not about producing followers, but producing leaders.
Okay.
So if you're an effective leader, that means you're raising leaders. So in your absence, something will still keep running. So I believe in that philosophy. I believe a good leader is the individual who has worked so hard such that in his absence, things are running. And they're running just as good and as effective as he was in present. So I believe good leadership is about raising leaders, not about raising followers.
Okay.
Yes.
And is competition affecting that?
Competition, again, if we look at competition, it's really an idea that we've embraced. This is what the society is teaching us, competition. True leadership means there is no one like you. There has never been anyone like you. And so you do not feel threatened to compete if you're an effective leader. Your joy is actually raising people to maximize their potential. Because leadership is not about power, but it's about empowering others. So your joy as a leader is in seeing people empowered. So you will not feel threatened with the concept of competition, because the more people rising under your service, the better you are as a leader. So you will actually celebrate them and encourage them. The farther they can go after you or further than you, the happier you should be as an effective leader.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And let's bring it to a little bit of family.
Yes.
Because I know you're a good commentator of family and
Yes.
family values. And we see in a situation where young people are starting up families, especially say a lot of our friends, they are just getting married. Is it also the same picture we are having in these other aspects and say government or corporate world? Is it the same that we bring back again to the family?
Unfortunately, yes. Leadership crisis at a national level and leadership crisis at a family level is really the same thing.
Okay.
This is simply leaders functioning in different spheres. But the same way a leadership crisis would affect the nation is still the same way a leadership crisis would affect the family. Young people, especially, getting married, know very little about marriage. And that's because there has been a lack of mentorship. They do not understand the institution of marriage. And so they are not very well equipped to serve, because the moment you get married, you've actually entered an office called husband. If you're single, you are not a husband. So whether you have the kind of equipment you need to function as a husband or not, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
The moment you get married, now you have to function as a husband. The moment you get a child, you enter in another office called father. Now you also have to function as a father. And in the same way that different offices have different set of skills required to function in that office, so is it even at a family level.
Okay.
You can be a good husband but a poor father. And so it's still a leadership problem. So effective leadership at a personal level is actually a solution to every other problem.
Okay.
So that when you get married, you've been trained as a father, you've been trained as a husband, you've been trained as a man or a woman. And so when you function effectively at a family level, we will feel the impact even at a community level and eventually at a national level. The politicians we are having are simply people coming from certain backgrounds. And how effective they were parented, that means there was good leadership at a family level. It will produce good leaders at a national level.
Okay.
So I also believe that leadership at a family level is key to solving every other leadership crisis. Yes.
Okay, that's good. So I think we've covered much of the topic, and just say a short comment or to cover up everything. What would be your advice to the youth, and what are the aspects that you'd really want them to consider when they are thinking about leadership?
I want the youth to realize that everything rises and falls on leadership.
Okay.
And they should take up the responsibility to develop leadership, because the next generation is going to be impacted very significantly by the kind of leaders we produce or the kind of leaders we become. So I urge every young person out there, in whichever sphere of influence, whether you are in art and music, whether you are in profession, whether you are in media like you, whether you are in politics, develop your leadership and commit to solving the current problems that we are facing. Take responsibility. The reward may not be immediate, but we will be solving the problems for the next generation. One of the problems I feel for young people, we are suffering from the spirit of immediate gratification. We are always concerned about what we will get immediately. But if we think in terms of generation, we will really commit. And I call upon every young person to commit in developing the leadership in them and committing to serving their generation in their area of years, so that we can actually allow the next generation to inherit something of value. I would be very glad if my children or grandchildren stand and say, we are standing on the foundation laid by our fathers, and this foundation was good. So every young person, take up responsibility.
Okay.
Take up responsibility. Yes.
Thank you very much, Cliff. And there we go. You've heard it from Sir Cliff Alambo, and he has spoken to us all, and I'm sure there are so many things we can pick from that. So don't just be a leader by mouth, Be a leader by deeds and you'll be very effective. Don't be afraid of the process and you'll get there when you get there. I've been your host, Tali Victory, and this has been Love the Escape to Perfection. See you next time.